Hey, Samford fans, welcome into another edition of The New Normal, where we talk with Samford coaches, athletes, and staff about the impact of COVID-19. Today, I'm joined by senior pitcher on the baseball team, Connor Radcliff. Connor, appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, let's go back to the week this all unfolded. You guys had a game that Tuesday night. Everything at the time felt pretty normal, but then the dominoes started falling the next day, beginning with the announcement that classes would move online following spring break. What was the vibe like amongst the team that week? And even going back to that Tuesday night game, do you guys have any idea of what was coming?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird week. So we had this coronavirus stuff that kind of started the weekend right before when we were down in Pensacola, but it really wasn't a big concern. We didn't really think anything was going to happen. And then, like I said, we had that Tuesday night game. And by that point, we had heard that some of the other leagues and some of the other teams had started canceling seasons or postponing and stuff like that. But we really didn't know how much that would actually affect us. We just were like, oh, we'll just keep playing and see what happens. So we played that Tuesday night game and everything was normal. And I think actually we were in the locker room and one of the guys on the team asked was, "Hey coach, what happens if our season gets canceled?" And he was just like, I don't know. We'll have to look into that. And then I think about every day after that, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we had a meeting with new information on what was going to happen and how this was going to affect us and everything moving forward.
So when did you find out, and how did you find out that your season was going to be at the time just suspended through March and then eventually canceled altogether?
Mhm. So one thing that the SoCon did good, they actually allowed us to have that postponement where it was still giving us a chance. So like I said, we had those meetings about every day, and I think on Thursday was when the softball game was, that they were figuring out that their season was actually canceled and the other team's season was already canceled. And so we kind of knew that that was coming for us pretty soon. But we hadn't heard anything official. We were still waiting on the athletic directors to meet. We were still waiting on the presidents to meet. And I think it was actually either that Thursday night or the Friday morning that we were actually going to be playing the Jacksonville State was when we officially found out that we were postponing our season for a couple weeks. And that was actually good news because we thought that it was over. And so having that 2 week hiatus would have been good. But as you know, it kind of snowballed from there. And then a few days later, we found out that the season was canceled completely.
I mean, that's such a tough pill to swallow for any student athlete, but especially for the seniors on the team who at the time were probably all thinking, that's it for my playing career. What was some of the instant reaction amongst you and your teammates?
Yeah, so I remember walking into that meeting in the locker room. The coach had told us to come up to the locker room and just seeing everybody getting out of their cars and walking in. It was just kind of everybody just had their head down. Everybody thought it was over, and the seniors were just really didn't know what the future held because if the season's canceled, we didn't know how that was going to affect us, if we were going to be able to get eligibility back, if we weren't, um, or what was going to happen with us. And so that initial reaction was definitely just kind of shock and disappointment, and just not knowing, I think was worse than what it ended up being.
It's been known for a couple of weeks now that spring sport seniors can return for another year of eligibility. A lot of them certainly will, but a handful of them will not. And you're going to fall into that latter category. You will not be coming back to the team next year. And I'm sure there are a lot of factors at play here, but perhaps most importantly, you have a degree from Samford and you're getting your MBA. You're working towards your MBA right now. It still has to be a really tough decision for you to make, walking away from the program, but walk us through what that process was like for you and how you came to your decision.
Yeah, so it was a really tough decision, and it wasn't one that I took lightly. And it took me, I mean, all of 2-3 weeks to make it. I mean, that really hasn't been official for too long, but a lot of it had to do with starting off just with my academics. I graduated last May with my undergraduate degree in marketing and sports marketing, and then I came back for my 5th year to play, and I was getting my MBA. And I'm actually going to finish my MBA. I actually have one class to take online next fall. And so that'll be my last class. And that was one part of it. It just really didn't benefit me to stretch out my MBA program and maybe even have to add a class or two. It wasn't going to really add extra value. The second part of it was just that, um, as as we were getting ready to finish our MBA, we found out that we were postponing our season for a couple weeks. And so that you probably know a lot of athletes have to think about that life after their sport ends. And so that was a piece of it as well. And I have an opportunity to go be in the sports field that I want to be in and start my career there. And I just kind of felt like it was an opportunity that I didn't really want to pass up. It was going to be a great stepping stone for my career and just really get the ball rolling to be able to let me get to where I want to be a few years down the road. And so that was also a part of it. Obviously, I'm going to miss like crazy being around the guys. I'm going to miss the coaches, being around the program, being around everybody at Samford, just walking through the halls in the Pete Hanna Center, seeing everybody. But it's definitely something that I think is going to benefit me in the long run. And baseball had to come to an end, and unfortunately it came to an end a little bit sooner than I wanted to, but I think that it's going to be the best for me in the long run.
Speaking of the MBA, you're taking online classes for your master's now. How has that transition been?
It's been good. Actually, the Sanford's MBA program is pretty good, and they offer an online class and an in-person class pretty much every semester. And so most of my classes I had already scheduled for being online because I was supposed to be so busy during this baseball season. So I actually only had one class that I had to transition from the in-person class to the online class. And with that, that class is actually taught online in other semesters. So it's pretty easy for that professor to kind of transition the material, transition all the lectures online. And so it really went off without a hitch and just kind of was a pretty easy, smooth transition because I also already had those online classes that I was already taking in other classes.
What does the future hold for you? Where would you like to be in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so I want to stay in the sports world. I want to preferably be in a sports organization and be on that business side. I've always loved the business side of sports, and it really interests me. And it's just something that even just going back to my freshman year here has just been at the top of my list. And so I think in 5 to 10 years, I want to be at the corporate partnerships, selling those in the organization level, either MLB, NBA, NFL, maybe even NHL. It really doesn't matter, just being in the professional ranks and selling those and dealing with some of those signs and sponsorships that you see like on the outfield wall at a baseball park or things like that. That would be my ideal situation.
All right, before I let you go, Connor, favorite memory as a Sanford Bulldog?
Favorite memory, I think that it would have to be when we went down and beat Florida State in the regional. That year was not one that was all good. It was some ups and downs, and definitely we put it together at the end. We swept the SoCon tournament and we went down. Nobody even gave us a chance down there in the regional, and we beat Florida State, probably one of the biggest wins in program history, and then had a couple other chances to play some great teams in Oklahoma and Mississippi State down there. But that feeling is definitely one that I'll never forget. That atmosphere that night, and having that ring on your finger is always a good sign.
Connor, thanks so much for your time and best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
That's Connor Radcliff. I'm John McAfee. Stay tuned to our Sanford Athletics website and social media channels for more interviews in the coming weeks.